Hey, it's Chris here, talking to you in our unit here about, and today we're going to talk about the Anglican, the social atmosphere, the social environment around this building. Yesterday I talked about the building itself and history and all the property that's owned, and like for example, there's this building, and then there's that building, and then there's a big huge donor building, and then there's the supervisor house in the donor building where they have like an Anglican like tenant or like a custodian or whatever that kind of watches the whole thing. And then I think they've got there's couple buildings behind us to the south of us, and I think they're starting to buy properties or units in them buildings as well, and then planting their people in there too. So I think there's massive properties all over. So whatever is happening here, I'm guessing that it's happening in other places too. And not just in Sydney, but probably all over the place, because there's Anglicans all over Australia, and probably there's another arm of Anglicanism in the United States and in Canada. So I think these behaviors are probably all over the world. These behaviors are bullying and property acquisition and power, utilization of powerful plays with financial leverage and political favors and quote friendships. So we're going to talk about the social environment today, and this has been pretty consistent over the 3 years. Like I said, lots of things have been changing since I've been talking on the videos, and lots of their behaviors have been changing. Like for example, I talked about my neighbor Snarker, and immediately just like that his behavior changed. I talked about Foolfully and how he used to behave in certain ways, and immediately it was changed. I talked about a whole bunch of things, not just on videos, but in life, in letters, and in documentation, and in my journal. And since they read my journal, or they were reading my journal when I had my computer, then they can read the journal, see what I'm thinking, see what I'm saying, and then counter whatever argument I'm making, and then change the behavior so that it's not applicable to them or the situation anymore. So in other words, they negate the observations, and they negate the statements, truthful though they are, and then they say, no, we don't do that. Then they lie and say, no, we don't do that, we don't do that. So the social environment here is very engineered. Like what I mean by that is there's people here in the school from all over Australia, and they go through a strict screening process. They're asked questions like any school. They're asked questions, and their answers, tell the people that are asking the questions, the interviewers, a lot about them. So we have a building. In this building, there's 19 units. So the Anglicans placed in these 19 units are very specific in their placement, and they provide a service. Their psychology, the way they are, their nature, they're placed here for a reason. For example, the guy beside me, he kind of fulfills the same role that the guy previous to him did, like kind of like to watch out for Foolfully and kind of take care of him and babysit him, because Foolfully broke into our unit, and everybody knows that I've made it clear that I said he did. He's one of the ones that did it, and then there's a couple other people that were involved, and I said specifically that those people were involved. So the people that I named, some of them specifically moved out, and they moved to another building, to the donor house. They said it was because they needed more room, but it was like a week after I wrote a letter. They moved out. I wrote a letter to the ICAC, the Independent Commission Against Corruption, and the guy who goes to the same church as Premier Bear, Das Val, he left like less than a week after. He snuck out the back way. I didn't even know he was moving. And then his neighbor, a guy from Indonesia, left immediately. So yeah, so these people are placed here for a specific reason, and their replacements, I'm certain, know about computers too. So for example, Das Vile left, but his replacement, I think, knows about Skinny Woodsole. I think he knows about computers too, and I think that they all work together in their attacks on any target that they're going to pick, because they want this unit. Well, of course, we're going to be a target, because I found out and kind of put it together that that's what they were doing and that's what their bullying was about. Then, of course, we're going to be targeted and we're going to be attacked. This has happened since we moved in. So, car scratching, you see pictures of the drawing on the hood of the car. That's in another video. Finger pointing, and it never ends. It just goes on and on and on and on and on, and it never stops. They're relentless, and so they go through a screening process, and they're placed here for position. They're placed here for a purpose, and they hold their position, and they do what they're told, and they hold the line, and they complete the job description that's given to them. So, for example, when I first moved here, there was two buddies, and they were real knobs, like real sporty guys, and they were really like aggressive and loud and domineering, and everybody kind of like, they were like the alpha males, and everybody, like, immediately I kind of like with one of the guys, and just did not get along, and I tried, but just didn't work. He, abrasive and domineering, and very, very aggressive, like instant attack. Him and his buddy was very similar, like instant attack. They dominated their relationships, they dominated the people around them, and everybody around them, they were like like dogs with their tails between their legs. They would all go submissive, and no matter what they said, like one of the guys was, well, they were both bullies, but one of them would say something that was like ridiculous. If I were there, I'd be like, look, that's ridiculous, and I completely disagree. But not everybody else was like, oh yeah, I see. Yes, I see that point. Yeah, very interesting, yes, very interesting. We ought to talk about that on Sunday sermon. Yeah. That's the way it was all the time. That's the way it still is. So students remain loyal to their tasks, and they stick to it over time. So they don't vary over time. They stick to their tasks, and they remain loyal to their tasks. So they remain loyal to their tasks. They don't deviate. There's bullies and intimidators. There's people who are willing to like do little things like breaking and entering, scratching. They have the psychology that they'll do that, and they're willing to do it, and they justify it with the ethics of serving Jesus, that they're soldiers for Christ. So they'll do little things like that, like like throw rocks at windows, like knock screens off windows to open. When you have an open window, you have a screen to keep the dust out. Well, I had our window screen knocked off. They have groups of people that will create diversion, create noise, and create distraction for the other people that are doing other things. Like, for example, the girls did this all the time. You'd see the guys behaving in a certain way or doing something, and then the girls would be over here making lots of noise and creating distraction from what was going over there, their wives, and so it happened all the time. So, like, for example, they wanted to go to the back end, to the MDF, to get to the power, to get to the communications jumpers in the MDF. It's where all the telephone lines and the internet lines go. So they snuck through one person's house, and while this was happening, they had like a group over here, like making lots of noise. But this group of people comes sneaking through the house, goes through the back door to make it look like they're friends, right? To make it look like they're visiting. So they sneak through the house and go through the back door and immediately go to the back panel. And then I walked back there, and they're all sitting around the panel. And one guy was from the other building. He didn't even live in this building. He was from the other building, and he had the key to our back MDF panel. So they're all looking around the MDF panel, studying it, looking at it. And the one guy goes, oh, yeah, it's okay. We unit so-and-so just wants internet. And that was a lie, because less than a month ago, Telstra had been in, and they signed off saying that it was okay to that jumper point. So all they had to do was call up the company, and then plug in the modem to the wall, and it would have been good to go. So he was lying. So little things like that, diversion and then attack. So, and then there's even a person on site who has medical access to drugs, access to, medical supplies, etc. But it's been like that since I've been here. So, you got a question. uh, these people, they're chosen for a very specific reason, and it doesn't deviate from, they don't deviate from their purpose, and they stay strictly loyal to each other, and they back each other up, even if they're wrong. And even if everybody knows that someone is doing wrong, they'll still back them up and they'll still support them. Even like Foolfley is a huge criminal and he's totally hurtful, but everybody backs him up completely. It's like a gang.